Happy time zone on this Saturday afternoon for me, or wherever it may be for you. It may already be day five of Art Fest for you, but for me, it's Proposal Day. So I figured I would go with something very romantic today for Proposal Day of DE Art Fest and edit the lovely reunion scene from Detroit Evolution. A few weeks ago, we did a VFX stream where we walked you through Adobe After Effects and how we did all the visual effects and special effects for the film. And during that time, we talked a little bit about editing and post-production other than VFX. And there wasn't really time to do it then. But this is all dedicated to editing and other post-work before the VFX even gets made. There was probably something like 400 hours of editing or something put into Detroit Evolution. I mean, I'm literally, I don't even know. It was 3 months of like full-time weeks. So you're talking like 15 weeks of 40 hours a week. Yeah, easily 400, 500 hours of editing and sound editing and color grading that went into editing the film, because it was 10.5 hours of raw footage before the film was edited down to the 75 minutes that you guys are familiar with. So there's a lot to sort through. There's a lot to consider. In this scene in particular, it's kind of funny. This is like the worst scene that I could have chosen to walk you through in terms of editing, because I edited this so non-traditionally. This was one of the first scenes that I looked at, and then this was kind of before I had my system down, so funny enough, like I don't fully have the system in place that I normally would do. But I will still walk you through it anyway and maybe show you the system that I use in other scenes. Like the rooftop scene, I know that I used my system on because it was very functional. But yeah. Why is Joe being bullied by the mods? Yes, you guys can work on ArtFest stuff while I work on this. We can all work on Detroit Evolution stuff together today. It'll be very odd for me to go back into editing, especially something I've already done, because I have to almost remember the thought process that I was in 6 months ago. And on top of that, I might not necessarily feel like making the same decisions today that I made 6 months ago, which is kind of funny. So there may very well be changes to the scene that gets made. And I'll also be skipping around too. I mean, this scene alone probably was like 8 to 12 hours of work in post. So, I'm going to be speeding through a lot and skipping a lot of steps and kind of getting to the point with a lot of things. I especially know that the color grading was extremely difficult, and I had to perfect on this scene for a few different reasons, which you'll see later in the stream. So yeah, hopefully this all works out. I think I'll leave my cursor on for this so you guys can see where I'm going. But so I've got a few different timelines open. I think though I'm gonna duplicate this one because it's in the right aspect ratio. Where are we? I want to duplicate, and we're gonna rename it into like stream edit. So this will just be like a blank. What? Oh. Yeah. So this is going to be what we're going to be working in today. I'm going to just completely delete that, and then we'll start from scratch with stuff. So if we ever need to pull stuff over, this is an empty timeline that we can do that, and it's already in the right aspect ratio. Aspect ratio is important because this right now is in 5.5K CinemaScope. I believe this one might be in 4K. Because this was like the final version that I like copied into the final timeline, so this might be 4K. But this is in native resolution from the cinema camera that we shot on, which is 5.5K. So it's super, super sharp. And like if you go to full resolution with this, it is a huge picture. Hello, Michael. Michael's beautiful. Look at those eyelashes. He's fantastic. But yeah, so like, look how sharp this is, even at 100%. There's so much detail there. Wonderful. So we put that on fit so we can see all of it at the same time. Let me also make my chat a little bit bigger so I can see what you guys are saying. Oh, thank you, March. We appreciate every second you poured into this one because it came out gorgeous. Yes, it was a lot of time. It really was. It was, I mean, like I said, you're talking full-time work weeks through November, through December, through January. I think it was February before I really had a picture lock with sound also locked. And, that's a step that comes later. And that alone, I think it took a month for me just to do sound selects. So that alone was like 100 hours of work at least to go through all of because you go through all the footage and you pick, your visuals that you like. And then you go through all the footage again and you pick the dialogue that you like. And I'll be getting to that later because that's a step down the line. But I remember Chris in particular was very fascinated by that process because I don't know if he realized that that's something that I do. And I don't even know if it's something that every editor does. I think that some editors might not bother with that. Some editors might just be like, oh, okay, so there was this take that we did where the actor delivered this line with this way and the footage looked good, so that's the take that I'm using. And 20% of the time or 30% of the time you get a perfect delivery and visual, but the majority of the time you have a visual that looks really good and really sharp and really on point that the cinematographer captured, but the line delivery that is best that came actually out of the actor's mouth, or that the sound guy captured the best and didn't have like noise or rustling or buzzing or like anything in it, was from a different take. So very, very, very often I will pull the actual sound of a different take and pair it with the visual. And I would say probably 50% of Detroit Evolution is that. 50% of Detroit Evolution is audio from other takes put under the take that was delivered. So yeah, fun fact. So we'll learn a little bit more about that. And the funny thing about this scene in particular is I know there's at least one line, and I'll walk you through it when we get to that part, but there's one line where I pulled like every individual word in the line from a different take. Like I was so perfectionist. And that's why I'm doing this scene in particular today, because this scene I poured over. Like I think this is one of the only scenes that I did 2 passes of the edit for. Like I edited it and then I let it sit for a couple months and then I went back to it and I went back to it as if I was doing it kind of new again. And I really, really made sure that every frame, every syllable of the scene was what I wanted it to be and was as best as it could be. And I think that even though the performances are fantastic and everybody came together to make this scene what it was, and you guys have seen the raw footage of this and the making of, so you know that it's a very powerful performance, even completely uncut and unedited. But I do think that the editing and the dedication that I put into the post work of this and making sure that the color and all of the cuts and all of the line deliveries that were chosen were as best as they could be really added that little something extra to make it as good as it was. So starting from the beginning, I want to just walk you through the general post-production process that I kind of went through with every scene. So I've got some folders over here. I'm going to move... Actually, I'm just going to mute my camera for a sec so you can see behind it. So I've got a few different folders. I do D+, so that they'll show up early in the actual... so that they'll show up early in the actual like list here, and I don't have to scroll too much. But here I have my days. This is day 1, day 2 through 7. We did 7 shoot days, and all of the different scenes these are the scenes for audio. So like 39, 38A, 38B, 38C. So that's scene 38 take or the A take or take 1 of that scene. So this allowed me to sort my actual sound files that I would later pair with the footage. But then all this is the footage. So like this is all the footage from day 1. This is like all the fight scene stuff, all of the warehouse stuff. Day 1 was the warehouse. And then this scene comes from day 3, end of day 3. So this is all the DPD stuff. This is all the raw footage. So like if you wanted to see, I think this is probably part of it. So this is like a raw take piece of raw footage from, that's Maximilian's close-up from this scene. So this is in the raw. You kind of, it is already like technically color graded a bit, because that's the way red footage works, is you kind of color grade directly onto the footage and then that propagates through your entire document. So in this case, like this is raw footage and this is the clip. And so I go to effect controls and I see that there's nothing, there's no effect added on here, but this master selection of color settings, this has been edited. This has been changed. Like you can see that I've moved the color. This is not 0. This was tilted back. So in order to get this back to how it originally looked, you'd reset that. Although that doesn't actually look right. As shot, I think? Yeah. So if you go back to as shot, this is what came out of the camera. This is what it looked like when it came out of the camera. But if we undo that, this is already a modification that I have made directly onto the footage. So because it's directly onto the footage, this file now looks like this in all timelines that I have open, in all sequences that I have open, in all versions of this clip that I am working with. It already has this color modified. We'll be getting back to color later on because this is not the first step that I do, but I just wanted to bring awareness to the fact that what we're going to be working on already kind of has some color modification that when I initially went through the raw footage, it did look like this. So yeah, you can see over here, and I don't know why it decided to just open that, but let's see. Okay, so I have a few different folders. Like I said, this is all the raw footage. Scene sequences is basically the syncs. So scene 16, what is scene 16? I think this is the morning after or Jericho. I think it's Jericho, yeah. So all the scene sequences is I take the sound and I sync it to the footage. There's no editing going on. There's no color grading. It is literally just the raw footage that has been paired up with the audio. And you can tell where the sync begins because it's where we slate. And I'm gonna unmute everything so you guys can... Oh, I'll turn on my desktop audio. Here we go. Maybe it'll play.
All right. 17B, take 1, soft sticks.
We just walked up the set of The Deuce.
The douche.
We gotta love Jill. So this was soft stick, so it was kind of hard to see in the timeline, but all of that was pretty much synced. So this is the spike in the audio, which you can see here, where these sticks clap together. And it's actually not quite on point. It's a little off. But all these different external audio sources that were captured by Austin have a similar spike in them. And there's 5 levels of this. This was the mix, the field mix, which is all the different channels already put together. And these are all the individual mics. So just offhand, like this might be Jill's, this might be Maximilian's, this might be Chris's, and then this is probably the boom that was just put in the room, in the corner of the room to capture ambient audio as like a backup. Or really more particularly, like that's good for capturing like footsteps. It's good for capturing like the movement of chairs. Atmospheric audio is kind of what I use the boom for, because the great thing about that is it doesn't sound like it's coming from any particular like point. On a lapel mic that's isolated to an individual, it might be weird to have like certain audio sources in the ambient room sound far away and then other things sound closer in perspective to like where Maximilian's mic would be. If you have a boom that's kind of centrally located, then all the ambient noise sounds like it's about the same distance away, which sounds a lot more natural. So all of this is synced to the slate. So that's why we slate, is so that later on I can sync all this. And just think about the fact that I have, I don't know, like 9 or 8 takes here for this scene. And I have 41 scenes. So this was like 25 hours of work. I'm gonna move my my camera back on. Yeah, this is like 25 hours of work just to like sync all of this. And this, like, even this scene, which was just a montage, but like this scene, this was the bar fight, like, and all these were also, I think the field mix was separate. These other lapel mics and stuff, that was all kind of synced together automatically. But yeah, so like, yeah, before DE never knew why slates were used. Well, this is why, because I visually have to go back and be like, okay, we slated. So this looks like the slate here, the spike. That's probably it. I think we might have just... Actually, I don't think we slated this scene. That's even worse. Like on the scenes where we don't slate for whatever reason, because we're like outside or we're rushed. There's a lot of times that happens. So yeah, like a lot of times things don't get slated, but on times where they do, like I know we didn't slate this because this was outside, and sometimes it depends on like where the microphones are. Like all of their microphones were inside this car because they were sitting inside the car, so it was impossible to slate because you would have had to slate inside the car. But I know that this scene at the DPD, like we definitely slated. This one's actually pretty notorious, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, you can even see on here, like, that's definitely the slate, because it's like a spike that you can visually see. Now, next time I do a film of this magnitude, I'm definitely going to get an application called Pluralize. I thought that was the Who's Mark take, but it's not. That was actually serious. But yeah, so there's an application called Pluralize, which automatically syncs your sound and your audio. It finds those spikes in the actual audio and the video and auto syncs all of it. It will save me like 30 hours of work. It's like a $400 program, but it's worth it, I think, to save 30 hours. And also, once you have it, so you can use it for the rest of forever, and it will eventually pay for itself for sure. And for those who don't know what this whole like slate, but what we write on the slate, so 37 is what scene this is. This is scene 37. The D is like what camera setup. So like this was a wide. We start with A, which is like our first take, which I think was like our master shot here. This is probably where the slate is. Yeah, 37A, take 1. And so this is our first setup where we put the camera. Every time you move the camera and get like a different angle, the letter changes. So we have like A through D for this. We had like, I guess, 4 different setups. And then the take is that setup and which take. So this is the same setup, I believe. This is a different setup. These two were the same setup. So you have like take 1, and then I think this is take 2. Although no, different setup. So yeah, we actually didn't do very many takes of each setup. We tended to just do different setups on this movie. We would just be like, okay, Brett would find his angles and it would look good. And then we would just be like, okay, we got enough out of that. We'll just move on to some different angles. And we would just let him move around and just get different coverage. And I would just figure out how to do it in editing, and it would work. Very rarely would we do like a second or third take on the same setup. Pretty much we would only do that if somebody fucked up. Like if a line just got completely messed up, or if like a light fell over or something and we had to restart from the beginning, or if Brett, felt like he had like too much blur or something like that and just like wasn't getting any good coverage, then we would restart and just do another take of the same setup. So you'd have like 37E take 2, 37E take 3. But yeah, we rarely did that. We mostly just would do like 37E and then F and then G, and then we would just go through different angles to get more coverage because everybody was just really on top of things. This is alone, I guess, 27, 21, 24. So this is a 3.5 minute scene, I guess. And they would just nail it. Like, they would just go through all at once and not have any mess ups for the most part. Except I remember specifically that this one did, funny enough. But yeah, they would just, all four of them would just zoom right through it. They were very, very professional. And that was why we were able to get through like 12, 13 pages a day of shooting, which is very unprecedented. Not quite Tyler Perry level crazy, but a little unprecedented. So this is the first step. So this is what I did with this section was, and this is why it's a little untraditional, because I know this timeline is a little fucked up from how I would normally do it. But this is just all of the pairing of the audio sources with the visuals. So these are all the different takes we did and all the different audio that's paired with it. And this is where I would start with every scene, and I would put it in this folder here called Scene Sequences. Then we move on to Scene Edits, and this is where I copy all of the synced footage into a new sequence and I edit it, and then it becomes the scene edit. So like scene 37, I'm going to show you the traditional approach, and then I'm going to show you the kiss scene, which was not done traditionally, not done in my typical way. So scene 37 would be here. That was all the footage that was synced. And then you have scene 37, the actual edit. And so this looks interesting. You've got like all these cuts here, and then you've got this edit at the very beginning. So this is my first pass edit of the actual scene. And by first pass edit, I mean like rough edit. You see I'm still keeping all of the sound sources. I have not cut them. I have not whittled them down. I have literally just, kept them in place, the original sound sources. So this is before I do any sound editing. And this is also just like, there might be moments in time where there's an edit here that I don't love or that I don't feel like is smooth, but I just keep it for now because, I'll come back later and make it better later when I have a better set of eyes. Because a lot of times, you edit for a while and you just become tired. Or sometimes you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you just don't have a vision for it, or maybe you haven't spent long enough time with the footage to kind of know what to expect. And that's, that's basically how you get through this. So what all this is, in this part of the process, this second window that I have open, the scene edit folder, is I go through every take and I take every single line of that take and I put it against all the other lines of all the other takes. So I don't know what this line is or whose line it is. Whose line is it anyway? Who knows? Let's go through here. Might be a 9's line. I don't even know whose
that
audio.
We should find her tonight, but I don't think we should approach her with violence. She's not.
Of course, my audio is like, I guess I'll just turn off some of these mutes. That usually solves it. So it's going to be like echoey and weird, but whatever.
We should find her tonight. I just don't think we should use violence. I agree that we should find her tonight, but I don't think we should approach her with violence. She's not a deviant.
So this is all of his deliveries of, I don't think we should find her tonight, I don't think we should approach her with violence, she's not a deviant. So I guess we had 7 takes of that. And what I would do, typically at this point, would be, I would start, I don't know, sometimes I start at the beginning like a normal person, but other times I start right in the middle of a scene. If I kind of know there's a take that I love visually, I'll start with that. And then I'll just like arrange it to where I'll pull whatever visuals I like the best. And again, I'm not listening for the best delivery at this point. I'm looking for visuals only. What do I like visually? And then I'll try to pair it with the line before it that I think looks good.
Gets into that new body, we're fucked. We don't have time to wait for Fowler's signature or a jury. She gets into that new body, we are fucked. We don't have time.
And I'm losing audio because Premiere hates me. This is an issue that I've had with Premiere, which is really frustrating and tedious, is that if you get so much in your timeline and stuff, a lot of times it just mutes itself. And
If she gets into that new body, we are fucked. We do not have time to wait for Fowler's signature or a jury.
Right. So basically, yeah, you just separate it by line, and then you just start pairing and mixing and matching and things. And I'm not really going to demonstrate that here because that would just be a nightmare. Again, it's very difficult for me to like go back into the mindset of where I was 6 months ago because like I don't fucking know like even where to begin. It's very difficult to like do this on command. But if we go back to this scene, the reason this is so difficult for me is because I didn't do that with this scene. I just did it like intuitively. Like I knew what shots I wanted to use for the actual kiss, and then I kind of built outward from there. So, and I also had a lot of footage that I kind of couldn't use from this scene in particular because one sort of secret thing about this scene, I guess, it was shot on Steadicam, which means that we had to use a remote focus. It had to be focused by Brittany in the back while Brett was the one actually operating the camera. And that got difficult because that means that there's a good portion of some people's takes that are blurry. So I just knew that that footage was unusable. And I know that I had... Okay, so this is the closest thing to what I just described for you guys, where you break up every line into its own section. And that's what the color coding kind of means. It's like each color was from a different take. So I guess this is probably Tina's line. Maybe?
We go knocking door to door.
I think I can help with that.
So that might be, I think I can help with that. Yeah, I think that's what this is.
I think I can help you with that.
Nice.
Right. So this is basically a demonstration of the process that I just showed, because what ended up happening was I edited this scene, and that's what you kind of get here, I think. This was like my first pass at it, which is why the color grading looks a little different. It's because I was still experimenting. This is like my first version of it. I edited like a very rushed version of it to like send to the mods so they could see what it looked like back in November. And then finally, when I decided to edit it for real for the movie, I went through my actual, my process of divvying up all the footage and doing it correctly the way that I typically would, where I break up every line like this and actually walk through it the way I normally would. Word images says, I always force myself to take a break while editing so I can catch things later. All right, so the cool thing about this is like when you're editing something for 6 months, when you're editing something for months and months at a time, what ends up especially on a movie that you wrote and that you kind of imagine in your mind of like, this is the movie, like this is the scene, this is what we shot, this is what the script says, and this is what I'm going to do. It's very difficult. You kind of have to get into that post-production mindset for months and months at a time to be able to imagine the film in maybe a different way than you originally thought. And that's where the second kiss in this scene comes from, because that was not in the script. That is a result of seeing something in the footage and being like, I wonder if I could do something with this footage. Seeing what's in front of you instead of what you want to do based on like this preconceived blueprint that you yourself have made. I have experienced this a few times with Detroit Evolution. I experienced it massively with Seven Deadly Sins. Seven Deadly Sins, and once the movie comes out next month, and once you also like will be able to go back and like read the screenplays and stuff on Patreon for Seven Deadly Sins, it will be astounding to you that the screenplay that I wrote became the movie that you see. Because there's literally a time in Seven Deadly Sins where I combined footage from 3 different scenes to come together to make one scene, because I was editing it so far, like, off from what we originally intended to shoot. I ended up cutting like 2 or 3 minutes out of the film to streamline the plot line in the edit. I remember there was a time where I had to do a visual effect in Seven Deadly Sins where I digitally added drinks to their table because that was the only way that I could make that scene combination work, because like 2 of the scenes that I was adding had drinks on the table, and then like the other pieces of that scene that I was using, they hadn't gotten their drinks yet. So I had to take the drinks from later and then put them back on the table so you could conceivably believe that all 3 of these pieces of footage came from the same scene instead of 3 different scenes. But it's completely seamless when you watch the film. Like, you won't even think about it, because luckily we shot it in a way where like it kind of naturally was able to blend and not be off-putting that this was dialogue from 3 different scenes that was combined together. I also had to combine footage from 2 other different scenes because like we didn't get enough coverage of like this one section in this one scene, but I ended up deleting the scene that was like other coverage of it. So I was able to kind of like match the lip sync of like a different line with one of the lines that Tiare says. So I got some better atmosphere on that scene. Like, when the editing streams for 7 Deadly Sins are gonna be dope, because like you're gonna be like, what the fuck? That movie is a complete Frankenstein in the editing room, based on the intent of what we shot paired with what I actually edited. There's so many secrets in the edit to that. It's really amazing. One of the things that's kind of a secret in the Detroit Evolution edit is obviously this second kiss, which I guess I can just go ahead and like walk you through. Let me see. Yeah, this scene. So I can walk you through this, but there's also some other goodies in Detroit Evolution that were made in the edit. Number 1, the fact that the Dr. Maria scenes are out of order from how they were shot. Originally, Dr. Maria comes and talks to Gavin and Tina after Gavin and Tina have that heart-to-heart where Tina's like, you're his world and stuff. That happens like right after you see Nines on the operating table. Dr. Maria shows up, you get the exposition between her and also Ada giving Nines exposition, and then you go into the coma scene. And I found that really drowned out that Gavin and Tina scene in the actual edit. In the script, it worked. But in the edit, it's like Gavin and Tina have this great heart-to-heart about like the Reed 900 relationship, and then like you cut into all this exposition about Ada and stuff, and then you go into the coma, and it just felt weird. The flow was weird. And so I edited it to make more sense, where when you see him on the operating table, you immediately go into the Dr. Maria stuff, you go into the Ada stuff, and then Gavin and Tina have like that moment where they had that conversation, and then it goes immediately into the coma confession. And that just felt so much more natural in the actual edit. And that's something that didn't occur to me until like February, like 3 months into the editing of this film. I had already done a rough cut at this point and watched it and felt like there was stuff that was wrong with it that I wasn't digging. Initially as well. Oh, I should show you guys this. I hope I still have it. There was something that I was doing experimentally with the Jericho scene with Ada, the second Jericho scene. And I don't know oh yes, it is this section. You can kind of see a way that this scene was gonna go that I originally played with that didn't make it into the film. Because originally in the first pass of the film, the rough cut, I cut out this scene 15, this wake up scene. I cut it out completely because I just couldn't get it to work. There was just stuff about it that was really bothering me, and that just felt like it wasn't coming together for me. There was a few different reasons for this. There's the way I was editing it. I felt like Gavin and Nines were coming off too angry at each other, too hostile. And I didn't want their relationship to come off that way. I didn't want their relationship to come off as angry. And what's interesting, I guess I used I used a different shot here.
The hell is all this?
Are you feeling alright?
Fucking.
Yeah, so if those of you who've seen the movie a million times know that this was not the shot that I used for Gavin getting out of bed. I kind of ended up, I went with close-ups here, but you can see his little socks. Socks cult. Yes, Gavin sleeps in socks like a monster. I do like this shot. I do like this shot. I can't remember why exactly I went with something, why I went with the close-up. I think I would just like the emotion of the close-up better. And I think I like the movement, the way that this movement from this shot moved into the movement here. But yeah, I do, this shot will be an unused footage in the next unused footage reel for sure, because I do like this a lot. But yeah, so this is my first pass of this scene. I gotta see where this ended. Oh wow, this is really different. This is really different. And then we did this, and then I guess it ended the same way. Yeah, no, I used a different shot here. I think this was before I sound edited it, so you may be able to hear maybe why I had struggle with this. This is very intense.
Wipe all that stuff from last night from your brain.
I'm not leaving because you regret having acted like a person.
Oh, oh, right. I completely, like, took out the get out in this version of it.
Person.
Oh, right. So this was an edit attempt at seeing if I could get away with Nines just saying that line and then just walking out. Like, completely cutting the get out. I kind of almost got away with it, but then I was like, oh, but Nine seems so cruel. Like, it seems so mean for him to just, like, leave at that point. So that was kind of interesting, to just, like, have him turn on his heel and leave.
I'm not leaving because you regret having acted like a person.
Oh, I think the other reason is I'm not leaving because you regret having acted like a person leaves. Like, that also made, like, no sense. Like, it just didn't make any sense for him to literally say, I'm not leaving, and then walk out. So that was just, like, also boggling to me, like, it just wasn't working. But the reason I wanted to consider cutting Get Out, let me see if I have that footage. I gotta be really careful about navigating this edit, because there's some stuff in here that I really don't want you guys to see. Let me go back to just the straight up raw footage of this. Yeah, I can just go to the scene sequences, and then I know I have at least one of them. But the Get Out was, like, way more intense. And that's basically what I'm getting at, is that the Get Out was, like, hardcore. And I remember thinking, oh, that's really rough for them. But I didn't want them to be that angry at each other.
I need you to leave. Just meet me at work, okay? And wipe everything that happened last night from your brain.
Oh, he immediately stands out of frame and we have to cut. Oh, that's why that's why we don't have Get Out in that one. Okay. Okay, this is definitely it. You can see it here in its intensity in the timeline. This is gonna be fucking loud. I'm gonna turn down my desktop audio a little bit to save your ears. There we go. He just is so tall, he stands right out of frame. Look at that Get Out. Whew. It's about to deafen me, I know. Mute this one too. Come on, Premiere, don't fail me.
Person.
Get out!
It's really rough. Really intense. So what I ended up doing, so this is all the things that I was, like, facing at the time, right? This is all, like, that was way too intense for what I wanted to go for. And also the fact that I couldn't just cut it out because I can't have Nine saying, I'm not leaving because you regret having acted like a person, and then leaves. So, like, I didn't know how to end this scene, and I was like, oh, fuck, like, maybe I'll just cut it. Maybe I'll just cut this whole scene, and the way I'll solve it, because you can't not have that scene in the film, like, you need to understand that, like, they went to sleep together, they had this nice moment, but now the rest of the movie, the next 30 minutes of the movie, is them arguing with each other. So you have to understand on some level that they had a tiff, that the things got pulled back from that paradise, that things got pulled back from that softness. So my idea was, what if I just take the moments that are salvageable from that scene and insert them into this Jericho scene as like memories, as like Nine's memories that he's flashing back to and thinking about as he's having this conversation. And the way they played it, it worked because both Maximilian and Chris very much played this scene like they were both distracted by things, especially Maximilian. So you have all these inserts, and I know that Premiere's gonna fucking hate me for this. I'm gonna try to turn down the quality and we'll see how it goes.
We're reviewing the notes to see if there are any leads there.
And then he kind of like, and we, of course we lose sound because Premiere is a son of a bitch.
Leads there. You're still here?
And then you go through here, and then like there's another one here which I believe echoes off of Gavin's last night.
Last night. I need you to leave. Stuff from last night from your brain.
And then he leaves, and then you kind of have like the thought back. So this was interesting. It kind of worked if I was really desperate. Like I really liked it at first, but what ended up happening was I watched this in the rough cut, and it was a pacing issue because I felt like this wasn't strong enough. You don't get the... There's some things in editing that aren't just about what the audience is shown on screen. Some things in editing rely on the audience feeling things at a pace that makes sense. You gotta feel things kind of unfold, like you're experiencing things with the characters. And this felt like a weird, like, Cliff Notes off-screen thing that, like, you felt like you were missing something as an audience member. Even with these references back to what had happened, it was like you're still going to be left wondering, like, well, why didn't we see this? Like, if this was so important to them, like, why did we not experience this as audience members? And so the pace, even though this scene as like an individual scene worked, when it was put in the rest of the film, it didn't, because it was like whiplash. It's like you went from the bedroom scene where they're cuddling to this, and it was just odd. Like, it just didn't feel right. So after the rough cut, I went back to scene 15, and I was like, well, what the fuck can I do with this scene? Because I can't have him leave, but I also need for this scene to work. So I found a solution to my problem, and if I can find... Right, yeah, it would have looked cool. It was like a cool scene to show you guys, like, here. It's just something, like, you know, that I tried. Something experimental that I did in the editing process that didn't end up working. But yeah, let's see what we've got. Let's jump around, not too much. So this is the first edit, and then we have the final scene edit. This is what we ended up making the final scene. This is what made it into the film, I believe. You gotta believe. Right. Okay. So if we zoom in here, I think, yeah, we can see what I did. So this is your Get Out, and that's what made it into the film, but that's what it was in its raw state. I cut it. I cut like a big portion of it out. So like the original line delivery, let me make sure this is the only soloed track. Yeah. The original line delivery was this. A lot. Really, really fucking intense, Chris. Don't get him angry. I never want to see Chris on a bad day. And then the actual film is this. Intense still, but not as intense. And so I definitely wanted to pull back on that because that was one of the things I was getting hung up on. I was like, I don't want their relationship to come off like angry and mean. I want it to be conflict, but I want you to root for them. I want you to know that this is a misunderstanding and not like loathing. And I feel like being able to change that helped a lot with this scene, because imagine if I had kept it the same, it would have come off very different. So yeah, this was a scene that gave me a lot of trouble for reasons like that, and eventually I figured it out. That was like a big part of figuring it out. And I also felt like, okay, so now that we're able to keep the get out, we have a reason for Nines to leave, and it's not out of character for that to be, he says I'm not going to leave, and then he gets hit with that, and he's like, yeah, I'm out. Okay, I lied, because that's a lot. That's very intense. So yeah, that saved this scene. This allowed this scene to get back into the cut, and I was able to work with it from there. And I think also there was just elements of this scene that, like, I just needed to sit with it for a while. Like, maybe it wasn't shot the way I originally thought it was going to be shot. And it was difficult for me to, like, wrap my brain around, okay, how am I going to actually put this scene together? Additionally, this was a scene where pacing was just very vital. And I had to drag out this as much as I possibly could because I needed this scene to be as long as I possibly could. I needed to build that tension. And the way I did that was, so Gavin gets up. This Sparrow is why I did not use that pretty wide shot that I showed you guys earlier. I cut to close-ups because I show him getting up here, and then he walks out of frame, and then we utilize as much of this shot as we possibly can with Nines. Because it doesn't take Gavin this long to walk into a closet, right? But we're going to pretend that the room is that big. And then we show him, realistically, by this point, he would already be in that closet by now. But because he's off screen, you're not thinking about it. And then he's only like 4 feet away here. But we do that edit to make this as long as possible. Because, yeah, like, if we did this, I mean, he's like, getting up here. But by this point, he's already gotten up. So this was another part of editing the scene in a way that tied it together and made it feel better, was to just drag out that pacing as much as possible. Yes, this is the stuck in a closet prompt. What else does he got? He's got a sword hanging on the wall. That's pretty cool. That's pretty in character. Just has a sword with a snake wrapped around it. Gavin. And also, of course, Frankenfurter over here. I was asked if I wanted to bring that down. I was like, no. Gavin would actually absolutely have gay icon Frankenfurter hanging in as well. You gotta show some mise-en-scene sometimes to tell the audience about who your characters are, and I think that was a good one. And of course, Chartreuse, hanging out on the ledge here. He doesn't sleep with Chartreuse, okay? It's Gavin. He keeps him over here, but he does have his stuff sharp. So getting back to the kiss again, when we talk about stuff that happened in the edit, stuff that happened not intentionally, like, based on the script. This kiss was not in the script. We didn't shoot it. This is the same footage of the kiss that the first kiss, the reunion kiss. So this is just Maximilian's close-up paired with... Oh, that's right. This is back when I didn't have the Miller portion. That'll come later. So this is Maximilian's close-up paired with the finale of Chris's close-up. This is the end of the scene for Chris. And actually, I can show you, if you've seen the unused footage reel, you know this, but that's how the take ends. That's how the scene ends. So there is no kiss there, but we can pretend. And then this is, of course, you know, you love me, and then holding hands, and then all the first kiss stuff. But what ended up happening was I was going through my footage, and let's go through the raw footage here. I was going through my footage, and if we go through where that actual kiss is, somewhere in here. Probably here. Or here? I don't even know anymore. Probably here, yeah. Nothing is labeled. Don't expect anything to be labeled. Okay, I knew that this was going to be the money shot. Like, I knew that this was the best take that I had of this. So I knew this is what I was going to build everything else around. And I knew that I wanted to go into it with Gavin's close-up because, hello, anime eyes. So if I knew how I was going to begin it, I guess this is actually Gavin's close-up. This is where I was going to begin. This is where I was going to have the main kiss. And I think I also wanted to end it with Gavin's close-up as well. I don't know how far this goes. I know I wanted to end it here. So I had this take that I was not going to use at all, which is fine. It's another wide. It's darker. It's not as good. It was really good in the moment, but because it was our first take, but it just didn't really work. And then I had Maximilian's close-up. And Maximilian's close-up, and I was like, I didn't really look at it until, I guess I didn't even include it here even. I didn't even include, there it is. Yeah, I didn't even include Maximilian's close-up. Yeah. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. This is in reverse. Oh my god. Yeah, I did some weird stuff trying to get this to work. I like reversed footage and all sorts of shit. Yeah, because I was like, what if they like part this way? Yeah, you can do all sorts of shit just by like reversing footage. I thought maybe of ending the kiss with this. Like the first one. Like maybe that would have worked and I could have used that, but I didn't end up using that. Regardless, this was Kiss Experiments. This was me realizing that I liked Maximilian's close-up and feeling like, it's a shame I can't put that in the movie. It's a shame that I can't use this close-up for anything. The reason I like this close-up, as I'll demonstrate, I like that Nines leans in, but Gavin finishes it. I really like that. It was a completely different energy from the other ones, where like Gavin very much initiates it, and that's what I needed for the movie. I very much needed like Gavin to initiate with massive ardor, like that first kiss. But I still like this. I thought this was very sweet. This kind of like Nines meeting him 90%, but letting Gavin finish the final 10. It was a very different energy, and it was an energy that I like wanted to utilize in some way. And I was just like, it's a shame I can't like use two pieces of footage at once. And then I thought about it and I was like, wait a minute. This scene ends like this. It ends with Nines leaning in. Like it ends with Nines leaning in to put his head on Gavin's. And then I was like, what if I have him like lean in just a bit at the end and then I put this in? And cue 8 hours of me in this timeline trying out all the different fucking variations frame by frame and seeing what works. So this first one, I kept Gavin's little smirk at the end, which is cute, but it doesn't work because there's too much like muscle movement here that doesn't translate to this shot, and I couldn't use that one. So then there's this one, which cuts a little too early because there's like, or it doesn't cut too early on Gavin's part, but it starts too early on Nines. So that doesn't look natural. I sent so many GIFs to the mod chat trying to show them all the different variations of this. This was something that like literally frame by frame had to be cut together because if it was one frame off, it looked weird. And eventually you stare at it so many times and you know that you're bullshitting the audience. Like, I knew this was shit. I knew that this was, like, not real. I knew that I was faking you out. So it was very difficult for me to get in the mindset of, does this look real? Because if I'm not convinced, maybe it's just because I know that it's not real. And so it kept showing the mods so many GIFs and trying to get them to help me decide, okay, does it look real enough? Does it look real enough? Does it look real enough? And then there was like this one. And what's wrong with this one? I don't know. Too much. Okay, so this has the problem of both. It cuts too late on Gavin with the smirk, and it also starts too late with Nines. I believe this is the one that ended up in the film, this fancy orange one. For whatever reason, that worked. I don't know. I couldn't tell you where I cut exactly, but I can tell you these are all slightly different, and all of them have slightly different frames. What is this? I think this starts too early on Nines, probably. Yeah, way too early. Yeah. So what is this? Oh, this was like a completely different... This was like me being really experimental. I think I was like, what if I start from the side? And then I go into Nines. And I was like, no, that doesn't work at all. So that didn't work. I think I tried like reversing some footage at some point, as I showed you before. And then I was like, well, okay, what if I like end, right? Like, okay, so this is what ends up in the film, right? This orange stuff. Like, what if I tacked on another wide at the end, the wide that I didn't use, right? I could maybe do that. But then I was like, that's a weird way to end this scene. Like, that'd be a weird ending to just like cut there into Ada. So I threw that out. Even though it worked. I mean, this actually does work. Like, this goes into this next wide pretty well. I couldn't end the scene on that. And actually, I was like, originally this was the ending of the scene, and then they just kissed, and I was like, I was happy with that. But then I had the just absolutely galaxy brain dumbass idea of, oh, what if I put in the Miller cut? What if I did that? Because this is what ends up in the movie as like your main kiss, but it goes on for fucking ever, and I don't use all of it. And I was like, well, what if I like take the back half of it and put it here? And that ties everything together, because ending on Chris Miller is just that perfect beat. This was an outtake take. This was never intended to end up in the movie. This was for the gag reel. And I remember, I think I was on a live call with the mods when I discovered this. We were just dicking around on Zoom, and I was screen sharing my edit like as we were just hanging out. And I was like, what if I put this here? And then we were just laughing hysterically. And I was like, but what if I actually put it in the movie? And they were like, I don't know, maybe Michelle. And I was like, no, I can't. It's too dumb. And then I was like, wait, well, but if I like cut it kind of early before it gets weird. And then I just loved it. Because honestly, I believe that what sells this as a second unrelated kiss was the fact that it ends so differently. Like, it completely throws people off the trail that this is something you've already seen. That this is footage from a take you've already seen. Because you don't expect the kiss that you saw as their first kiss to end with Chris Miller. Like, this is completely different. This looks so intentional, and it wasn't. And so I think this was the perfect ending to this. And so this is how this unintentional moment ended up in the film as one of the most iconic and memeable moments of the entire movie. Was just me, after months in premiere, coming to the conclusion of I wanna use Maximilian's close-up because it's beautiful, and being motivated to add in a kiss that was not even originally in the film. So that's really fun. I like to be able to get to a point in an edit where this magic happens, where I can see the footage, not as the screenwriter or as the director, but as somebody who is just looking at the footage that they have and playing with it as it is, and being able to see it blind and see it as if it's unrelated and the potential in it. And yeah, so this is where this came in. But as far as the actual, and this is why this is actually in the final edit. Yeah, so this is what we would call scene 35 final edit. This pretty much was the final edit. Yeah. So in the final edit, yeah, you've got that moment tacked on at the end. Now there's still no visual effects in this yet because that came at the very final cut. But yeah, so this is the actual scene. So going back to here, let's assume that I did all this work. I broke up all of the scene, all the lines into fragments, and I arranged it in a way that I like. I have the first pass of this here. I have no idea what the sound is like on this. The color is all fucked up. This is back when I was being still very experimental about color. I think... I don't even know like what sound takes we have here. Oh, this is with the temp track. Oh, and thank you, Kiney, for the gift sub. Yeah, so this is the temp track. Oh, I definitely want to share this. So, temp tracks. So before I had Austin's score, I used a lot of sound and music from Detroit Become Human to edit to. This, I think, is one of the contributing factors of why a lot of my editing is on a certain beats per minute. So it kind of makes it easy for Austin to edit to, because once he kind of decodes what the BPM of my edit is, he then scores to that. He's able to actually kind of hit the cuts with his beats because I edit to music. And I always like to use a temp track, especially for a scene like this, because it really makes me feel like if a scene isn't coming out cinematically enough for me, I can kind of add some music and get a sense of like, once there's music in the movie, how will it feel? Will it feel cinematic when I have music? Will it feel cinematic when I have the color grade? Will it feel cinematic once it's no longer raw footage, but it's actually the whole picture of a film? And so the temp track that I used is from Kara's soundtrack. It's called What is a Mother from Detroit Become Human. And it's very violin-y. I love what we did with the scene now. I can kind of not imagine this scene with any other music now because of Austin putting the Read 900 theme in that just beautiful fanfare to this scene. But if you want to hear what the mods and I were watching for months back when this had Kara's music, this is what this is like. And there's a few different cuts. This is the edit of this is different. This is back before I perfected the edit. Also, the takes, the actual line deliveries are very different. So bear that in mind too. I had not done my sound selects yet. I hope this sound doesn't fail on me. Come on, Premiere, behave. I'm gonna move this down.
Distracting yourself with work at 2 a.m. Now I know you missed me.
You undead asshole. How did you wake up?
I heard you. Your voice broke through.
God damn it. You mean you heard everything I said?
Every word. Force you can't live without, huh?
I hate you.
You love me.
Yeah, this temp track just worked perfectly for this scene. It's a different shot from what ended up in the movie. I like the wide better, I think. Nev. I think that's also maybe different from what ended up in the film. Yeah. Yeah, these are totally different.
I'm the most advanced android ever made,
Oh,
detective.
you are such a fucking prick.
It takes one to know.
This is my jacket.
Yeah, you left it at Cyberlife. They didn't keep my clothes. So you've been making progress without me?
Yeah, guess we got some catching up to do.
And then I just ended there. Yeah. So yeah, that was the original temp track and the original edit, like the rough edit that I did before I perfected it, before I chose different footage for some of those shots. I much prefer the edit that ended up in the movie because there's just so much more motion, I think, in the selects that I made. Obviously, that color grading was all over the place, and that also was not not what I went with. But so this was like my first pass at it, and then I revisited it, and I took all this and I like really combed through it, and I ended up with this edit, the edit that you know. Even still, though, there were still things that I was changing about it, kind of last minute. Like, this shot here, you can see, is, like, double stacked. That's because I have a piece of footage that I preferred on top of a piece of footage that was originally in the edit. So I really like this close-up of Gavin. It looks, like, super vulnerable, and I like it. So that close-up of Gavin, this was originally a wide. Originally, Chris Miller gets up and it goes into the wide.
Let's do that.
But I was like, nah, no, I want the close-up. I want him directly looking at Nines. Although I'm pretty certain this is a reversed piece of footage. Yeah, this plays in reverse because I just felt like it worked better for his face to work in reverse in this shot. But yeah, so even like down to this final edit, I was like swapping things out because like if you go to final edit, this is on top of here. And then the way I did the visual effects is like, you know, I had the visual effects shot. Like this is the original footage. Come on, Premiere, you can do it. Come on. All right, so this is the original shot. And then I would take the visual effects shot and I would layer it over. So you would just have like layers of things. And so this is like exported out of After Effects and then like layered on top. And then still like I didn't add the visual effects until like the end. But so now that we've got an actual edit together, there's two more things we have to do to this scene, and I'm not going to get into like the final strokes of like adding back in the visual effects and adding the room noise and doing the full on sound mix and the music and the sound effects or anything like that. But I do want to talk about color grading, and I want to talk about sound selects, selecting the actual lines of dialogue that will end up in the film. The first thing is color grading, and in order to do this, we have to kind of walk back on all of the effects that we have, and this is where I'm going to use the stream edit thing so that I don't fuck up my my original scene. Hopefully this aspect ratio is right. Is it? Yeah, it is. I think. Yeah, we're good. So this, I'm really happy with the color on this, especially on the skin tones. I think their skin is just very soft. And that was achieved through a lot of effort because you can see over in this panel, I've got an effect, Gavin close-up kiss film. I had to go through so many different, the matching. Let's just start from what this looked like originally, and you can see how difficult it was. Because if we go to add a shot, this is like yellow and overexposed. And then the wide looks completely different. It looks completely different. It doesn't work at all. These two pieces of footage next to each other, it doesn't work at all. It's so different. It's so different. Look at what I had to deal with. This is so fucking blue and bright. And this is so pink and dark. Like, this is what it looked like in the raw, and this is what had to be matched. And so, and then you have this, which is also different. So this went into this, which wasn't like too bad. I mean, this is definitely brighter, but at least it's the same kind of color temperature. And then we do this, and then we go into like Gavin's close-up, and then we go into this again, and then I think we go into like Nine's close-up here. Yeah, and then Nine's close-up is also completely different. This is bullshit. It's completely different. This is so hard. So this is all the raw footage before anything's color graded, and it's just miserable because it's like, what the fuck? How the fuck am I supposed to match this? How am I supposed to match this? Effort. So this took a lot of time. So what you gotta do is just really trial and error. And I wish I could kind of walk you guys through this in any way that makes sense. But it really just is trial and error. It's basically getting one of these pieces of footage to, in a way where you're happy with it, and then trying to match the other. And I think that with this was harder. So I think this was harder to get looking good. So I think I started with the Gavin close-up because Gavin's close-up is overexposed. And I just was like, all right, we need to start here because this is going to be what I have to define everything else by. So let's start with this. So we start with the red. We start with the master shot. Unfortunately, Gavin close up kiss red, maybe? Is this gonna make it look right? Probably not. Maybe? I don't think this is what we used. I don't think that's what we used. Oh shit, I'm just gonna have to roll things back. I'm gonna roll it back. That's what I'm gonna do. Undo, undo, undo. Redo. I guess that was it. I guess it really is this dark, huh? Weird. I don't remember it being this dark in the movie. I really don't. Although that's right. That's accurate. So, yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So let's pull that back. And then this is, so if we go like as shot, this is what this looks like. So there's all sorts of settings. I'm gonna move my camera again here, down here. Yeah. There's all sorts of settings that you can play with red footage. This is 5.5K anamorphic raw, and raw means that you can push all sorts of stuff in these settings. Look at all this color and all these things that you can do. And so now we know that this is a preset that I made. This is what ended up, this is what we're going for. This is the goal. But to get there, I played around a lot with settings. So you have color temperature, overall color temperature. So that pushes it more blue. This pushes it more yellow. This pushes it more purple or green. This pushes it more purple. And so you just kind of play with like the overall color temperature. Just try to get it there. And I knew that this, so this we go back, is it wide kiss? Wide kiss red? Is this what this is going to be? Wide kiss red? Is that what I named it? I don't think that's the same. I'm gonna just make a new setting. Stream wide kiss, so that we can get back to that later. So I'm gonna get rid of this for a sec, so we can just see what we're comparing. Turn these off. So this is what we're trying to match with this. So what you can kind of do is try to be like, all right, I want my raw footage to like look like this. So we're going more red. And then remember that this is very like yellow in the beginning. So we want to go a little bit more like pink with it. So this is kind of neutralizing the skin tones a little, making it a little bit more pink. We can also go a little bit more on the purple end instead of the green end, because green makes their skin more like yellow and green, and purple makes their skin more pink. So we can start with that. But this is, of course, still too bright, way too bright. So we got to bring that down. You bring your brightness down like this, and now we're starting to get a little bit closer. Now, there's just an inherent issue here with the way the scene was shot. He's surrounded by blue, and then they're surrounded by pink. So I'm going to have to pull the blues out of this, and I'm going to have to pull more pink out of this. And that's kind of the thought process. So this is still kind of too bright and not contrasty enough. You want to add some contrast to make sure that you look kind of cinematic. You want to crush your blacks, as they say. So those blacks look a lot more dark and a lot more rich, more cinematic. But not only can you do overall color temperature. You can do individual color. Reds alone. Bring down your reds, bring up your reds. Bring down your blues, bring up your blues. That makes it look really purple and DBHy. So we want to bring down the blues a little bit, actually. And maybe bring up the reds. But now it's like, it's too much. So this is just a trial and error process. On top of this, you got these curves here. And you can change all sorts of color curves and stuff. So you can play with overall curves to like change how your highlights hit your guys. But you can also do color curves and gamma settings. So like red, the red gamma. There's so much finessing that you can do here on an individual level. And if we compare, again, we're starting to get a little like closer to the comparison between the two. But obviously I don't want them to actually look like this. So then that's when you start adding these film filters. I love film filters. Let's go ahead and like get to the point where let's Gavin red close up. Yeah. Let's get to like our red settings that look good. I guess what I ended up doing was I made it very like neutral looking. This is very kind of like grayscale. I kind of like scaled back the coloring and felt like, okay, I'll add the coloring back with a filter. And I think that's what I ended up doing here as well. Was I just like, I scaled back. This is with no filter on top. So this is just kind of like your raw, like what are you working with? And I went very like dark. I went very kind of like gray on the skin tones. And I went kind of more of that blue and kind of crushed the reds a little bit. I went more of a blue design. But this still doesn't match. This still doesn't work because this is still too like much pink in the skin tones, and then this is more like a gray in the skin tones, and this blue doesn't match this blue, so then some work has to be done. So I think I started with this. I added this film filter. Film filters are great because they make skin look fantastic. They really make it smoothed out. Like it just looks, this looks like very raw. This looks kind of pixel-y, like you can kind of see pores and flaws in people's faces. But a film filter just like adds this magic that smooths everything out. I find this scene to be very dark now, which is kind of interesting. And I wonder if it's because like when he actually looks up, we have more light. And part of me wonders if I maybe edited this more later, but I'm actually going to brighten it. If I could go back and change this now, I would make this brighter. Oh, that's funny. So add a little bit of exposure there, add a little bit of brightness back to this scene. But there's a few things going on here. You can pick different film filters, which is cool. And I love this one in particular, this Vision 2 500T. It's very blue, very pink. It's got like a rich color palette to it. But there's all sorts of different ones you can do. Some of them are more colorful than others. Some of them emphasize skin more than others. Eterna Vivid is one that I use a lot too in the film. Polychrome are like very, very vivid colors. This is like 2005 LiveJournal icon color grading for those who were around then. And then you have some black and white ones. So whenever I do Detroit Noir, I'm going to play a lot more with like these black and white color, like film filters. And then the double push are also monochrome film filters. But I love the 5229 Vision 2. Like this is just one of my favorite filters. Not only do you have a negative stock, you also have a print stock, and these also change things. These also make a different impact that kind of makes it a little bit more like hazy on the lights. And then your Fujifilm kind of gives you more contrast. And then this one makes your colors a little bit flatter. I think I ended up going with this one. But overall, I'm very happy with this. This is very pretty. And I could push the color temperature in different ways again. I could make it more green or more purple. I can make it more contrasty. I can make it darker, or I can make it more faded. I can make it very rich in color, or I can make it more monochrome. There's just a lot of different things that you could do with this filter over thing. The vintage modern slider is kind of interesting too, because you can go like really like old 70s photograph with it, or you can go like hard action movie. And unfortunately too many indie filmmakers go like hard action movie. They go like all the way up on this, and just this is a look that I'm very familiar with now, and a lot of indie films, especially like low budget action movies, they just overuse the shit out of this filter. But I like somewhere between the two, because I like the high contrast of this, but I also kind of like the haziness of that. So I kind of go like around here. Like this is like a happy medium. You can also vignette, which I will use in the noir version, because it's very like old-timey movie, but it looks kind of gross. Like you could, I hate when people vignette. A lot of people overuse it, and it's not a great filter. And then there's film grain, which you're not going to be able to see because it's way, way too subtle. But this can add a little bit of dimension too. Finally, there's the strength. You never want to go full film filter, because again, you just end up looking like a LiveJournal out like icon from 2006. But this is what it looks like without the filter at all. So it's quite a slider, and you kind of just slide it until you're like happy with it. It's like that's too much. That's too washed out. Let's go to here. It's like perfect. So yeah, this is kind of where we ended up with this. This needed a little bit of extra work. So I used the film filter, and I got here. And I think I used the same film stock to kind of give it that same palette, same film print. There's a few like subtleties that we could make there. But I think I pushed this one more blue. If I can compare the two. Right. I did. I definitely pushed this one a little bit more in the blue direction, because if it hadn't been, it would have been about here. And that's not quite right. I needed this to be more blue in the skin tone. So now we're starting to get there. Now we're starting to actually match these two pieces of footage, which I thought was impossible at one point in this editing process. I love the lighting as well. This was my idea, and I'm very proud of it. This little peak of light that they eclipse. That's all I wanted out of this scene. I just wanted that light that like halos them. I really like that. So yeah, we go back into here and notice that I have one more filter. This is the Lumetri color grading. This is just like so subtle. It's basically just adding a little bit of flatness to the scene, which in hindsight I don't really know why I flattened this. I like how rich this contrast is, but I guess when it came to matching, it just made them a little flatter and made it able to match a little bit better. But that's a very subtle effect, like barely anything. Maybe it's just curves. What is this if not? What did I do? There's no change. These are all 0. Oh, it's just desaturation. Wow. Okay, so all this is a slight desaturation of this. I guess I thought this was too colorful. That the way I originally did it was just too colorful, and it didn't quite match. And I just needed to pull back on the skin tones a little bit. So I what is this? What did I do 6 months ago that I now can't remember anymore? But yeah, that's pretty much how this worked. And that's how all of this ended up matching. But then you get over to 9's close-up and you're going through the same shit again. Because his close-up into this was pretty difficult. Because you're talking about, like, a very, very yellow color palette that I had to bring back to this and then adjust further with another filter. And I believe this might be a different type of filter. No, it's still the 529, but maybe it's just a skin adjustment. Oh, you can also change skin tone here. You can make them very yellow, or you can make them very pink, and like you could bring out the yellows or the pinks in their skin, and that's something I played with sometimes too. But yeah, This was difficult. This took a lot of time to get right. I love this shot though, because this has your pink and your blue in the same shot. And it came out really beautifully. Because originally, you know, it's this, which is very bright. And then you have to bring it down with your source settings. And I guess what's really working here, there's this shadow filter here. This really darkens things in a way that looks nice. Because originally that's set to 0, but I set it to -0.15. I guess. If my numlock would work for once, please. And yeah, we bring in that rich, like, like, contrast. I love contrast. Very pretty, but very wrong. Yes, indeed. And yeah, like, Jianjin, the whole, like, color dynamic here of, like, pink on one side and then blue on the other, where you have, like, 9s over here and then, like, blue over here. I love this, too, and I love that it worked out this way. This was a Brett thing. He decided to play with these two colors, and I went with it because it was very beautiful. I think the pink is very romantic. And then, like I said, the film filter just makes... This is my secret weapon. This is a film filter called Magic Bullet Film Looks, and I use it so much because it just makes everything look prettier. Just you have to be careful about not overusing it though, because like I said, a lot of people would like crank this up to 100 and crank modern up to here, and you end up with hardcore action movie, and like people overuse it. But if you're just being like really soft with it, you know, and if you went all vintage, then you end up with this. But if you just like kind of sitting in the middle here, and you know, you pull back and you don't go all the way in on it, because you see, like, their skin tones have, like, a harsh highlight on them, naturally. And this is a byproduct of working with digital film, I think, is just lighting can be very harsh sometimes. And that film grain, like, just softens it up and makes everybody's skin look fantastic. It's great. However, there is another way. There's another thing I use. I talked about this a little bit on the VFX stream, I guess. But there's another filter that I have in Premiere that actually is meant to make people's skin work. And sometimes you need this in color grading, because sometimes you'll be color grading, and this is less true when you're using the red, because the red has such control over every individual shade that you're working with. You know, you can push the reds, the yellows, the greens, the purples, like every shade in an image you can filter, or you can adjust with your adjustments in the red filter stuff. But normally, if you're just shooting on a DSLR and you don't have that much control over individual color, Cosmo is really useful, because this helps you make sure that your skin tones look good, even if you do crazy things with the rest of the color. So in this case, you want to show your skin selection. You like eyedropper the skin tone, and you can like isolate it and make sure that you're not hitting the eyeballs or the lips, because then they look like they have lipstick, and it's really unnatural. But this is the big hits of most of their skin. They have a pretty similar skin tone in the way of color graded, so it kind of catches both. But when we turn that off, there's a few things that we can now do to the skin tone. We can smooth it, and we can change the color. So we can make them very, very yellow, or we can make them very pink. But if I was, let's say, color grading this scene, and then like the skin tone looked like this, and this happens sometimes. Sometimes you'll color grade a scene, and then they look like they're jaundiced, and it's very off-putting. So then you would have to apply a filter like this, and it's like, all right, let's make that a little bit more human, a little bit more pink, not so green, you know. Take that like odd, you know, green alien kind of look out, and then bring it back into what was actually shot, and you're overcorrecting for the color grading. Yeah, you don't want them to look like The Simpsons or Shrek. Yeah, for sure. But there's another thing. The smoothing is really interesting too, because this is like this cranked up to the max. And unfortunately, you know, this, we also, I think, caught eyelashes and stuff in here. So this is like your Snapchat filter that makes the skin really, really smooth, because normally it would be like this. You have grain, you have detail, you have wrinkles, you have all this sort of stuff. But if you wanted to smooth it out, you could do it. And sometimes I do that. If a makeup effect looks odd or doesn't really work, or if somebody is kind of into HD, you can smooth that out. This should be done very gently. You should not overdo that because it looks very unnatural. But yeah, this would be like if you wanted to tweak that tone just a little bit. The thing is, though, 9 times out of 10, if it looks good without that, which this does, I don't use that because that effect takes a lot of processing power. I only use it when there's absolutely no other choice, when I just can't get a color grade right without it. But it kind of is my little secret weapon that I have in my stash, where if I'm really struggling with a color grade and I can't get it to work, I basically adjust the image to look as good as I possibly can, and don't I don't care about the skin tones, and then I overcorrect the skin tones back with Cosmo. So one final thing about editing. So let's assume like we get our color grade right, everything looks good, we get our picture lock, we get all of the shots that we want in the actual edit, and everything looks perfect. So now is where we go into picking the sound takes. And the way I do this is I go back to this and I listen. I listen to every take and every delivery, and I pull my favorites. And sometimes I have more than one favorite. Sometimes I have multiple ones that I like and that I could use, and if so, I pull them and I test them under the footage to make sure that the lip sync right, because sometimes the lip sync doesn't work. Sometimes they delivered it slightly differently and the timing is off and it doesn't sync right and people can tell. So sometimes there needs to be adjustment. Other times, you know, maybe they actually delivered a good line on the actual footage that I used and I don't have to change it. But I don't know what this line is. I should pick Undead Asshole wherever. Yeah, I'm gonna do Undead Asshole. Well, let's hear. All the different deliveries of you, Undead Asshole.
Yeah, let's do that. Burying yourself in work at 2 a.m. Now I know you missed me.
You undead asshole. How did you wake up?
Distracting yourself. Now I know you missed me.
You undead asshole.
So I wouldn't have picked that one because there was a creak in the middle of it where Maximilian stepped on a creaky piece of floor, and it kind of didn't ruin the take. I could have edited it out, but that would be more work for me.
With work at 2 a.m. Now I know you missed me.
You undead asshole.
These are all very different. Some of these are angry. Some of these are shocked. I decided I wanted to go like Gavin-y with it. I wanted to go very like, ah! And this ended up becoming my favorite take visually.
Now I know you missed me.
You undead asshole. How?
Now you'll notice that's not the line delivery. That's the visual, but that's not the dialogue. I believe the dialogue was this one. I believe Undead Asshole, the actual delivery, I believe it's this audio. But this is the video that y'all are used to. This take over here. So that's interesting. So I would basically do this with every single fucking line in the movie. Every single one. All, I don't know, 1,000 of them. I would go through every line and just pick the best one. And then I would go over to the edit and I would just like pull them under here and be like, all right, like what sounds the best?
Asshole. How did you wake up?
I heard you.
And so there was actually like a line that was like cut out of this section. So that's how this is seamless. Oh, look at all these cuts here. I remember, you want to see the most edited line in the entire film. It is right here.
Your voice broke through.
Let me highlight this so we can actually see all of it.
God damn it. You heard everything I said?
I want you to see how many cuts are in this line. This is a line that has like different syllables are from different takes. A part of this was a sync issue. Part of it was like just in order to get a line delivery that I liked that was synced to his mouth in this take, I had to pull from like all these different takes. And I also had to like take like half a second out to get the spacing right and everything. But like if you just look at this one uncut, it's very different. So see, there's like this huge space here. So like if we want to listen to like what made it in the movie, like versus like what this take would have been, we can listen to that. So this is the movie.
God damn it. You heard everything I said?
And then this is just what this uncut would have been.
God damn it. You mean you heard everything I said?
So there was, I think the other thing is that this line was kind of stuttered. Like that was how it was performed and that was kind of how it was written. So that had to also be edited to make sure that the lip sync worked. So this isn't really like a judgment call on Chris or like the performance or anything like this. The reason this line was so difficult was because I think it's just one of those lines that he wasn't able to perform the same way twice. Just because it is like so emotional and there's so much like stuttering in it. So it was, there's inconsistency in this line that I had to work with. And getting this to sync right was hard. So that's this, but like where did this come from? And what would this have sounded like?
God damn it. You mean you heard everything I said?
So it looks like these two pieces were from the same, these are from the same take. This is just cut to match the sync. But I think this is from a different take.
God damn it. You mean you heard everything I said?
So I know the I said is different.
I said?
Yeah, so one is like I said a question, and then this is I said a statement. I wanted it to be a question. So that's why the I said is from a different take, because I wanted more inflection to be on that line. Yeah. So this ended up being, I guess, 3 different takes. 3 different takes Frankenstein together. But I think it works. I think you'd never know.
God damn it. You heard everything I said?
Because it syncs. It syncs great. I don't even know if any of these are from this take visually. But yeah, this is something I like a week before the film came out. Chris and I were talking on the phone about how he didn't know that I did this. Maximilian knew that I did this because Maximilian has worked with me twice before. Maximilian knows that this is my process, that I make sure to take the most fitting audio take and pair it with the visual to make sure that I'm getting exactly what I want in a scene. And Chris didn't know that until I told him about a week before the movie came out. And I was like, yeah, I go through every single line of the movie, and I pull and I pair it, and I make sure that your performance is as optimal for the story that I'm trying to tell as it is. And I said I never know how actors feel about that because I'm literally Frankensteining your performance. Like, I am chopping your performance into pieces and assembling it. And he was surprisingly chill about it. He was actually kind of grateful for it. He's like, no, I'm glad you do that. Because he's like, there's plenty of times where I feel like I hit my angles, you know, I hit the visuals, but like I deliver the line wrong, or I deliver the line better in a different take. And it's good to know that you're putting that much effort into the edit to pull the best parts of me together to show the audience. And not to say that actors don't do a good job. Actors do a fantastic job. But I would like to take a little bit of credit for the version of them that you see on screen, because this is a lot of work, and this is to truly show you the best version of what they're capable of, to give you their best deliveries with their best visuals. Take as much credit as I want. Thanks, Holly. March, I almost feel bad being surprised by how much work went into this, but equally it goes to show how damn good the edit is, because we never would know. No, this is like a 1,500 hour post-production process when you actually break it down, in terms of visual effects, in terms of sound editing. And like, so this is why, you know, this is the point that I was at, I don't know, in March, and that's why the sound mixing and stuff kind of got like fucked up at the end, and I ran out of time because I spent a lot of time on this stuff. But when you actually go to like your Foley effects and your sound effects and your sound mixing and your balancing and all that sort of stuff, I kind of ran out of time. And so in the Blu-ray edition, and hopefully in the Noir edition too, I will have a lot of that fixed, because I'm going to have more time to work with it and make sure that I put as much effort into that post-production process as I do into this. Because if people wonder why it takes so long to edit a feature, this is why. Because a lot of people wouldn't edit a feature this way. A lot of people wouldn't put that much effort into it. A lot of people wouldn't, you know, pull every single little individual line that an actor says and analyze it and like take a syllable from one word and match it with a syllable from another to make sure that like it's perfect. But I am that bitch, and this is really important to me to be able to, when you're working on an indie film and, you know, you're limited by budget, you're limited by time, you're limited by the number of takes you can get, you got to optimize, because we, like I said, don't take that much coverage of every scene. We were doing 12 to 15 pages a day, and if you only get 4 takes of a scene, you got to make those takes work for you as best you can, because you don't have time to get your actor to do 10 different attempts at a line. Your actor gets like 4 or 5 tries and that's it. So it's very likely that you got to pair up that angle with that better like audio take in post, because that's the way to really nail it and be able to bring it together in the final film when you don't have that much time to be able to get it on set. So this is, Jan says you can't mention Noir Edition and not say more about it. Okay, so I will say this. On, July 16th or 17th, which is like Noir Day, DE Art Fest, you will find out what's going to happen with that. I will say you're not going to get Arden 16th. Cool. So we've got like 12 days. You're going to find out what I'm doing with that. I will not have DE Noir Edition on the 16th. I'm going to go ahead and dash your hopes there. The main thing is like, actually, like we can walk through this right now. I can show you exactly why it's not coming out on the 16th. So let's assembly copy. Do I have? Yeah, we can do this right now. We can make a new sequence from clip. This is the film as it is now. And so we talked a little bit on Twitter about black and white edition of Detroit Evolution and how that would change the movie and stuff, and started like doing some sample clips and everything like that. And it's just not as simple as just taking the color away, because this makes it black and white, cool, and then this looks okay. It all looks fine, right? Like it looks fine. But if you really want it to look like good, let's go to the Ada scene in the alley, which I know is like a big emphasis of this. So like this is a really cool shot of her. And if I wanted to perfect this shot, if I wanted this shot of Ada to just be completely baller, then you really got to like up the contrast. You got to mess with stuff. Got to bring up that light there. Make it a little bit more hazy. Let's go to effects here. Yeah, so there's stuff you gotta do to it that just makes the shot really sing in black and white. Bring down these highlights so we can see her silhouette a little bit more, but also like bring in the shadows. Maybe even bring these down a little. That doesn't look super great. Bring up the whites, bring up that brightness. Fantastic. These down a little. Ooh, she looks so menacing here. We can also kind of give it like that faded film look. Like, give it a little bit of that haze, that noir haze. Right, so like that looks cool. I wouldn't just do like, if I just like reset this and like, you know, so this is just plain black and white, but this is black and white with adjustments to make it more cinematic. Problem is, go later in the movie and it looks like garbage. So you can't just apply the same settings to the whole movie, because like now it doesn't work. Like this scene, you would need to do something completely different with. Like you would go like this, and you know, maybe like bring this down. Your curves are like completely different. You go like up here. Bring this, I don't know. Just play with it till I like it. Bring down the faded film. Bring up the highlights a little. Yeah, so like that's a cool shot of Gavin. If it was just a black and white filter, it would look like this. So this adds a little bit more dynamism to it. But then again, later on, doesn't necessarily work. Like her hair is like way too blown out in all this, and like this is too dark. And then that doesn't look terrible. But it's just, and then like skin tones look weird here. Like it's not optimal. So my long story short is that in order to do the Noir edition, I really need to go through... Oh, thank you, Irrationally Logical, for rating. I really need to go through every individual shot. I need to go through the actual version of the film that I edited originally, and I need to go through it shot by shot and make sure that the black and white is as flattering per scene as it can be. The other thing that we're doing to the Noir edition is we are rescoring the film with a noir score instead of the typical synthesizer score. It's going to be the same melodies and themes as originally used in the film, but noirified. So that's another special touch that we're doing to the Noir edition. But you'll find out about my plans for this ultimately on July 16th, which is Noir Day. So more news will be coming out about this then. But long story short, I definitely didn't have time to do all this in the next 16 days, especially with Synths to work on and the Blu-ray edition to finalize and get out to our lovely charity donors and everything like that. So this will be coming a little later on. But this is in the works, and my folks, my actors seemed pretty excited about this when I told them about this. Yeah, some of this looks still pretty good. That looks pretty. It's funny that even the black and white credits look different in black and white. But anyway, so that's everything for coming up for this. That's pretty much everything I have to talk about, I think, for editing. Blu-ray. How about a black and white black and white Ray? Tish. I thought you were gonna ask me for black and white on the Blu-ray, and it's like, no, I can't fit that. I already have enough trouble fitting all my special features on the Blu-ray. I don't think you guys, I mean, if you have any questions for me about post-production, you can at me on Twitter at Lady Tuano, or you can send it to Ask the Octopunks on Discord, that server, so I can just get to them later and we can talk about stuff. I think, though, I've pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about. I talked a little bit about color grading, about sound selects, about the actual editing process, about making weird decisions midway through the process, some that work and some that don't. I'm trying to think if there's any other, like, weird edits that I considered doing at any point, but I don't think there was. I think that I showed you the things that I experimented with. That Jericho scene was really the big one, where I was trying to get rid of the morning after scene in a way that didn't work at all. But yeah. Hope you guys had fun today. Next week, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing for my Detroit Evolution weekly stream. I might be doing a 7 Deadly Scents stream. I'm not sure. I have to look at my schedule and also figure out other people's schedules and see if it's going to be a solo stream for me again, or if it's going to be a guest stream, and just kind of figure that out. But as far as when you'll catch me next, I'll be on OPWU Monday at 2 p.m. as usual. We'll be talking about new merch. I have some amazing new merch, and I can actually, you know what, I might give you a preview right now, because I got it right here. I give you a little preview of something that's coming. They got a little bit of acrylic charms. Acrylic charms are coming. This is one of 3 pieces that's coming. And 2 out of the 3 are Read 900 themed, so you'll like that. So learn more information about that on OPWU at 2 p.m. In addition to talking about merch, of course, we'll still be talking about DE Art Fest and some other stuff that's coming up. And then next week, we'll be continuing our playthrough of The Last of Us, and Austin and I will be playing Animal Crossing on Thursday. New update, so Animal Crossing is coming next week, and we'll continue me and Greg's playthrough of A Way Out. Catch the VOD for that. That was last night. It was a lot of fun for those who haven't seen it yet. The VOD is currently on Twitch. Watch the highlight, because we had like 30 minutes of technical difficulties, so you can fast forward, like you can skip all that by just watching the highlight where I already cut all that shit out, and we get right into the playthrough. So yeah, go get caught up on that. Thank you for joining me today. Send me your questions about post-production if you have them on Twitter or on Discord, and as always, stay great, hydrate, and have a happy time zone.